created this finish just playing around on a clipboard, and I wanted to take this kind of mixed media and apply it to something functional. So one of my peeps, Maggie, sent me these fabulous sap buckets, so we're going to apply it to this. I started out by painting it with a white primer to get it all ready. I'll be using some basic watercolors, some water-soluble markers. This is the new Roycycled Paintable Floral Decoupage paper. I bet you guys can tell it is my new favorite. I'll also be using some of the IOD Lost Garden transfer with this one. To bring some character, I'll be using like miscellaneous stamps, and I've also be using the ink from IOD. I love it because it's permanent. I made me some coffee here, and we'll be using that in today's project. Some matte medium and some varnish, and that's it, you guys. Let's get started. I'm starting with my coffee first. I just want to make some really interesting marks on my pail and create some interesting texture underneath. I love layering when I'm making, especially with mixed media. It's a way to create beautiful depth in your project that you just cannot capture any other way. I'll be doing another video showing you guys how you can make your own coffee to use in your projects. I'm also going to be stamping just some typography. Y'all know how I love typography on my pail to go in the background as well. I love taking kind of a mixed media approach and applying it to items that are functional. So often we place barriers around our creativity, right? So we think that the things that we learned in card making years ago can only be used for card making. But what if you took those skills and applied them to your mixed media? Or we think mixed media is reserved just to use on like a canvas or things that are flat. But what if you took your approach that you use with your mixed media and you added it to some functional projects? Once I get everything stamped, you guys, I'm going over with my dryer, but I'm also heating up my ink because I want it to be fixed so it doesn't run when I start decoupaging. Now, I'm making a confession. I should have sealed this first and let my sealer dry completely before starting to put on my transfers. So I did struggle with this transfer just a little bit, just because I didn't seal my project first. Ultimately though, I did get the transfer on there. When I trimmed this transfer, I wanted to lay it on my sap bucket to make it look as if the plants were growing out of the bottom of this bucket. I love this transfer so much. There are so many yummy bits, and I love the way it's laid out. You could use it either on projects or you could use it on furniture. So I am just continuing to apply my transfer. When I'm working on like an object like this that's shaped weird, sometimes I'll snip the edge of my transfer so I can get it to lay down flat while I'm transferring. Once I get my transfer on, now I can get to the fun part, which is the decoupage. I am just tearing my flower right out of here. This project has tons of texture, and I know that the white portions of paper that are around my flower is going to disappear on my project, so I'm really not worried too much about getting a perfect cut. So I tear off a piece of the paper that I want to use on my project before decoupaging it on there, and I'm going to be using Wise Owl's varnish to decoupage, but you can use any water-based varnish that you have on your craft table to decoupage. I did spritz my paper with some water first, but apparently I didn't catch that part. So by spraying my paper, it makes it more malleable, and it also enables me to get rid of any wrinkles much easier as I decoupage. I just love how the things that I laid down first are showing through my decoupage paper, and all of that yummy texture is just going to add to the final finish and the beauty of this piece. I'm going to go around and just finish decoupaging the pieces of recycled decoupage paper that I want on here, making sure to have enough product under my paper so that I don't have to deal with any bubbles later. I want this composition to be balance. So I'm going to be putting flowers all the way around in different places. Now, if you're working with your flower and you would like it to be cut better or more closer than I've done on my last one, you can use a wet brush and draw a line right around your flower and just tear away the paper, and you get a much cleaner result than just tearing it the way I showed on the first one. So again, I'm misting my paper and I'm spreading it out so that when I put my decoupage medium on there, it does not respond to the decoupage medium, and so I don't get wrinkles. This is such an easy way to ensure that you get a nice flat finish on your decoupage, especially when you're using the Roycycled decoupage tissue paper. I want to be sure and point out just how important this layer of sealer is going to be for your project. You want to make sure and use a water-based project over your transfers before you go over it with a spray or a solvent-based sealer. I just love the 18-pound tissue paper. You guys notice how I was able to lift and position that? If I were working with napkins, I do not think I would ever be able to do that. Once I get everything decoupaged, I can seal everything, and I did go over my pail with some clear primer from Wise Owl. And let that dry completely before I started painting with my watercolor. So I just spritz my palette just to loosen up my colors, and then I can start painting. I'm going to put a base coat on mine. One of the ways I like to approach painting these flowers is to go in with a mid-tone or a color that's going to be kind of in the middle. It's not the darkest and it's not the lightest, and just lay down a base of color over all of my petals and my leaves too. And this yellow is going to be a really nice tone to start off with, and then I'll go over and layer on some other colors. I'm also going through and kind of keeping or trying to maintain my highlights. This is just a brush with some water on it, and I'm just going in and scrubbing the paint back off in those areas so that I can try to maintain some of that white, because I'm going to want to keep those highlights. The reason why these flowers are so pretty is because of the shading. We have really dark shadows, there's some mid-tones, there's some highlights, and it's all done with cross-hatching. And this cross-hatching is really what creates the form and makes the flowers look three-dimensional. Now I'm just going in and I'm just building like a loose palette of colors that I want to use. Some oranges, some reds, and more yellow. And I'm going to lay some additional colors on my flowers and start building up my kind of my final finish. I like to lay out all my colors so that every time I go back to pick up another color, you guys can see that I'm mixing it different each time. So this enables me to add variety to my flowers so that every petal is not exactly the same. And this is just going to make my final piece look more interesting and make the flowers look more beautiful. We know that our Heavenly Father loves diversity because there is so many colors just in one flower. And so I just want to bring that into this piece as well. When I'm going in with the additional colors, I'm still being mindful of the areas that I've kind of mentally set aside for highlights, and I'm trying not to go over those with any additional color. And I'm also paying attention to where my darkest shadows are, and those are the areas where I'm laying down my darker colors and then laying down my lighter colors in the areas of my flower that have lighter shading. It's kind of like coloring by numbers, you guys. It's super easy. I hope that you will try this. So what do y'all think so far? I hope you guys are enjoying the tutorial. If you love my teaching style and the information that I give, check out my decoupage masterclass below. I go over so many things about decoupage. Whether you're a beginner or you've been doing it for a while and you're looking to level up, I have something for you. Now, once I've gotten it all done, I noticed that I really wasn't getting any more depth in my color. So I sprayed my pail down with some varnish and I let that varnish dry completely before coming in to add more color. I just felt like I was adding color and kind of just pushing the same colors around as opposed to building up new layers of color. So I am just adding some matte medium to my paint for this round because the varnish is super slick and I didn't want my colors to bead up on the surface. So I'm just adding a little of that matte medium into my paint as I paint so that the paint lays down on the surface. And by kind of creating this isolation layer, I'm able to build up a lot more color. You guys notice that? Like it's a lot more dense and a lot more vibrant because I'm essentially starting all over, but I'm starting right over the top of that last layer. So I'm just going to paint all of my flowers before going in with the white on my watercolor palette. And this is going to make everything pop. Look at how beautiful that is. So we have our deep colors, we have our mid-tones, which are the colors in the middle. And now I'm just going to really push the highlights of this flower, which is going to give it a lot of life. And you can see why I was trying to reserve the light areas when I was painting so that my white can be really bright. I do want to point out that although this looks like it's a bright white when I'm putting it on, I did mix a little bit of the colors that I've been using with the white so that it's not like a super stark white, but because it's so much lighter than the rest of the paint, it still looks really bright and those highlights are really popping. I'm going to get that dry really good before I go in with my next layer. Now, these are water soluble pencils, which means I can just add water and this color will move around. I'm going in around the edges of my flowers. This is going to help me to camouflage those edges, and this color is a complementary to the primary colors that I use in the flower. So this is just going to breathe a lot more life into this pail. Now, rather than go in with water, I'm going to be using a matte medium to move this pencil around so that when it dries, it'll be set. If I use water, it would just keep reactivating every time I went over it with water. And I know that I'm going to have to layer this color on in order to get the kind of darkness that I want from this product. So I'm going to go over once and I'm going to lay the color down with my crayon and go over that with the medium, let that dry, and then I'll go back over it again with my pencil and then go back over with the medium and move it around. And I'm going to repeat this step over and over again until I get the depth of color that I desire for my piece. Now, I'm putting the color on to help camouflage the edges of my flowers, but I'm also looking at how everything is laid out on my sap bucket and creating a balance between the areas that are white and these colors with the really saturated blue, the areas with the really saturated blue. So my composition, even though it's on a pail, I still want it to be balanced. And so I'm just kind of, making really organic choices as I go along. Honestly, I kind of zone out a little bit when I make these projects, and my heart just kind of does what it does. The heart wants what the heart wants, right? And that's one of the benefits of creating, you guys, is that you can just kind of forget about like all the things that are going on in your life and in the world and just really focus on creating something beautiful, even if it's just for a moment. And it helps so much for me to alleviate stress. But I am going in with some white chalk paint for this one. You guys know I love typography. So I'm using this stencil that has numbers on it. And this is going to help break up those fields of blue that I've created. And it's also going to bring more interest into my project. You guys, look at how yummy all these layers are coming together. And even though I'm using products that we all use, this finish looks completely different than any other finish. And it's just a combination of all the layers together that allow us to create custom projects, even though a lot of us are using the exact same products. This is one of my favorite stamps. This is the texture stamp from Iron Orchid Design. This one is the Cracklier, and I am just touching areas with that crackle. Look at that. Isn't that so pretty? I just love all the different layers of this project, and the texture is just so beautiful to me. You can see how bringing together all the things that we use with our mixed media projects and putting them together on this project create something that is wholly functional, but it's also something that speaks to my voice, right? Because I've put these things together in a very specific way. Now I'm going in with my water soluble crayon and I'm just adding, y'all know, a little grunge because I love a good halo. So adding just this dark around the edges also helps to create depth in this project. When our eyes see dark, it's as if that area is receding, and then the areas that are light look like they're kind of sticking out. So when you do things like this, it's really a beautiful way to create additional depth in your projects. And I'm using matte medium again to spread this dark color around so that it doesn't reactivate and it's fixed on my project. And I think I am done. Now that I have everything finished, I'm going to go in and I'm going to spray it with this Rust-Oleum to seal it. What do you guys think? I think it came out so beautiful. It's not exactly like my clipboard, but I just cannot replicate. You guys, I would like to challenge you today to take something that you've done and apply it to something functional. This is a beautiful way for us to add our own personalities into our space and into our lives. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure and check out the information on my masterclass below, or you can check out Roycycled Academy for other courses I teach. Otherwise, you can find me on all the places: Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, all at Roycycled. Thank you so much. You guys, remember, there isn't anything that I've taught today that you cannot absolutely do. You can do this and you can do it today. Bye.